Hi, everyone, and welcome to our final discussion for TEL 703. We're glad that we're all here. We all made it. So tonight we're going to be talking about how we have changed as scholarly practitioners, action researchers, and influential leaders, as well as sharing how our interactions with our cohort members have supported our growth this semester. And I'll kick us off because we just had like a 20-minute conversation before we even started recording. And that in and of itself, those interactions have just been very meaningful. This semester, we've all shared that we've gone through a lot of different things with the coursework in our personal lives. And I personally couldn't have done this like without this group right here. This group I've become very close with, just sharing and talking. So that support is our problems of practice are interesting problems in education and things that we talk about, but we can kind of talk about that with anyone, but for me, for an academic program, this is really the first time in my academic career that I've actually experienced just deep emotional connections and being able to share where we are. It's nice too, I feel like, to have people on the journey that are experiencing the same things, even though we have different problems of practice, even though we have different things going on in our lives personally, our journey as scholars and action researchers, I think we're experiencing a lot of like similar things that are happening. And I think I'll just pass it off, and like we can come back to the next one to talk about how we've changed if we want to, if anyone else wants to talk on that piece of interactions.
I'll jump in. Thanks, Kelly. I echo your sentiments. I mean, I haven't been in the group as long as the rest of you, but even just these few sessions I've been in have really made an impact on me. And I hope we can continue because that support has been hugely motivational for me. I think not only just to hear like, oh yeah, I'm not alone, and remember that, but to really connect with other women who are, I feel like in a similar life stage, and have similar characteristics. We're all pretty driven. We were talking about perfectionism, however that manifests for us specifically, but it's really nice to be able to connect with other people, with you guys who share some of what I'm going through personally. So that's been really great. And then I just wanted to mention one other thing when we were talking about how we've changed. I think that's part of it because I see them connected for me, in that I have sort of gotten a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit more comfortable with chaos, only because I've been forced to this semester. But yeah, just trying to say like, okay, like we talked about last week, I might not get to all the readings, or I might not be where I want to be and what I envision step by step, and sort of learning to go with the flow with that a little bit more and trust the process. So I think that's part of being an academic scholar, right? Getting to that point. You had said that last week, Kamara, like there's just too much reading. You're just never going to be able to control every factor. So.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa and Kelly. That's probably been one of my biggest areas of growth, which I would say is still ongoing, but is this idea of, almost like taking what works for you along the way and then leaving the rest. And I think that was really hard for me to get my head around when the semester first started in 703, because there was all these theories that they were introducing us to, and then the Google slides, and it all just felt so overwhelming, because I think my approach prior to this has always been, right, like check all the boxes and get it all done. And this idea of sort of, like almost this journey through a field and like looking at all the things and then only taking with you on the journey that which is most relevant to you. That was really hard for me, because I think I've always seen this as like, well, I have to sit and I have to study everything along the journey. And so I still feel like I'm in that growth phase and I'm not entirely comfortable with it, but I think that's probably one of the biggest ways that I've changed. And I will say, as overwhelming as the introduction to all of the theories has been, I am starting to understand and appreciate why you need to be grounded in a theory in order to then be able to move forward and I guess do that comparison or do that mixed methods. Like you have to be grounded in something to start. And so I appreciate that far more than when we first started. And I guess, I will say the final thing, if I think back to a year ago ish, last January when we were going to have a concept paper written at the end, I remember like I was hyperventilating. How can I have a concept paper? I don't even know what dissertation hardly means, right? And here we are at the end of this semester with everything that we've done, and I can see the growth in my thinking. I can see the growth in my writing, and as overwhelming as it has been, I am grateful for the growth, and I think like I'm becoming a lot more of an academic than I certainly was a year ago.
Come on, I could probably just say ditto to a lot of what you said at the beginning. And Melissa saying, I think the hardest part for me this semester has been adjusting to not taking everything in at the pace, because I'm used to, like, if you give me a book, I'm assuming you want me to read the whole book, not just certain pieces. And if I can't get to certain pieces, and it's like I keep making notes, go back, and it just overwhelms me to see all of the notes of things that I need to go back and reread. And I spent, like today, I spent most of this morning just rereading some things so that I could be, in a better position to write. I'm not there yet. I'm not, I don't feel, I was just on my way back home. I was away with my family for the weekend, and on my way back home, I was telling one of my best friends, like, I just don't feel like I've learned enough this semester. And that's a really, when we were talking about what we were just talking about 20 minutes ago, how hard we are on ourselves, that's a heavy statement. Like, who says you didn't learn enough? I'm judging myself. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if I were to give myself a grade, I would be disappointed with myself. But it's very old standards, old measuring stick, because I think I need to know everything, and I don't know everything. And then when I think, okay, then what do I do know? I'm still feeling like I'm spiraling. So I think that where I've grown is I'm still trying to manage a lot more ambiguity. I thought I was really good at adaptive leadership. I am good at that at work, but in terms of school, I think that's something that I'm like, I need more help with. I need to know a little bit more about how I'm doing. And I feel a little bit disoriented in that, but I keep pushing through. And that ties to the support that I have from this group. Just keep swimming is all I think about. Just like, let's keep going. I have a lot more empathy for my students, I think, just because many of my students work full times. And even though they're in a community college and I'm in graduate school, it's no different. They're working full-time jobs with a full school load of things that don't make any sense to them right now. And here we are trying to tell them, like, of course it makes sense. Just do this. And then they go home and they're tired and they have families. So I feel a large amount of newfound empathy for students, because while I worked when I was an undergraduate, I certainly didn't have to work a full-time job, right? It was like money for books and things like that. But this support group has been everything to me. And like we said in, I think it was last week's discussion group, Kelly and I, sometimes it's more the peripheral support that we give each other more than any academic support yet, because really we're doing different things and we're sort of making meaning differently with different pieces that speak to our work. But just to be able to say, like, do we have to what, and when is this? And sometimes Kamara will drop me a note saying she's thinking about me, and Kelly will just say hi, just to say hi, we're just out here. And it's all the grounding that I need. So I think that I don't know if I would have been in the same place this far if it hadn't been for the relationships. And it's been hard, but I think we've intentionally stayed the course, been there for one another, not knowing a lot about each other, and sort of feeling our way through that and learning a little bit more every week, every time we come to these Sunday calls, which I very much look forward to. I always get to say, I have Sunday stuff on Sunday at 8:00 with my friends from school. And they're like, oh, you're in class? I'm like, no, it's a video session. I just have to get on.
I think you are hard on yourself. Talking about, I'll come back to because I didn't really talk much about like how I feel like I've changed, like scholarly and action research, and being an influential leader. But like I've seen actually in all three of you, like the stories that you share, I've seen like your change of the things that you share and like in your own spaces where you're able to like influence. And Melissa, I know you're new to our group, but I read your posts. And so like I see things and like your influence that you have at your school and what you want to do and what you're going to be able to do there. I will say that like consuming the research that I've gone and looked, and that this program has guided me how to look and how to read and how to think critically, and all the pieces of, as you were talking about, Kamara, like being grounded in a theory and a framework, and trying to understand what that is. It has changed me and how I approach what I do in my job, which is tied to what I'm going to end up doing in my dissertation in some way like that. And I tell people from the outside, like, that ask me, how do you do it? That's the only way I can do it, or like what I do in work to be tied to it. And for sure, like the projects that I undertake and lead, the output and the things that I'm like putting into it are heavily influenced by the research that I'm reading. And I feel like just a consumer of research, I've just become a better consumer of it, understanding where different pieces lie, like looking at, I mean, I did have an MED program, so I have looked at educational research before, but you know, just kind of skimming sort of a thing. And now I feel like I can read, I definitely wasn't reading dissertations, you know, and like think about how many dissertations we've all had to read, and knowing how to like look at one and pick out where what is and what it actually means and what it, and like, and then I think even projecting and thinking about, well, what is mine going to look like and be that way. I feel like we've all grown that way. So I do think we're all very hard on our own selves, like we're our own worst enemies. But yes, Melissa, I do want us to continue. And I think back to one of our beginning classes, that statistic, it sort of plagues me. The 50%, I think it was, in the one book. And I'm like, just always worried, like, is that going to be me? Like, is it going to happen? You know, and I'm scared. But I recently, when I was thinking about it, and I was like, I don't know if I could make it. And I thought of Sandra, and I thought, as long as Sandra's here, like, I'm going to be here. Cause like we started, and like, you know, like, I'm like, we're going to be here for each other. So yeah.
Can I just jump on that? Because
Yeah.
you made me think of some things. One of the phrases this semester that has really stuck with me is psychological safety. I can't remember if we read it somewhere. I'm sure we did, because I can't remember anything. I'm like, I don't know if that's how your brains are, or if this is just a result of what we've been, but I'm like, I read something somewhere and that's all I can get. But anyway, this phrase of psychological safety, I think, is so important, right? And I realize, like, that's what is, I think, special about this group, and so important, I've realized, in like pretty much everything, right? The research that we're going to do, and our workplaces, and finding any kind of success is whatever cohort, whatever group you're in, making sure that there is that safety to be vulnerable, to be transparent. And, you know, when you were talking, Sandra, I was thinking, like, early on in this program, you struck me, and I was like, oh, I love her. Like, I want to connect more with her. And then we never really had a chance to, but right away, your authenticity and your transparency came through. And, you know, you talk about needing this group so much, but I think that that's a real strength for you. And you brought that group together, this group, by being vulnerable and being open with your struggles and where you are. And I feel like, you know, those situations where it's like the person who goes through straight and narrow, everybody's like, oh yeah, they've got it all figured out, you know, and then they have the answer at the end, and everybody thinks they're going to be the one without, like, oh, the big prize. And then there's the messy person, and that person ends up like unearthing so much more by being willing to be messy and not know, right, and take those chances. And I see you doing that. And I really think that in the end, you're going to find some amazing truth because you're willing to go there and do that. So
thank you. I appreciate that. I always say I'm a hot mess, and I'm okay with it, but, and I'll put together when I need to. I just feel very open here. And I really do. I mean, Kamara's been really open. Kelly and I've been open since day one, and Kamara and I just got to know each other a lot more this semester, but I'm so grateful at all of our vulnerability, because even like the conversation we were just having earlier, like 20 minutes ago off camera, those are just powerful moments where if we're not just Like no one flinches. They're like, oh yeah, everything is normal. Everything is normal. Normative, or what's the right word? There's nothing that is going to freak anyone out because we've either been there or we have enough compassion or empathy for people to get us through. And sometimes it's just literally just putting that one foot in front of the other to say like, I got this. And literally it's, Kelly, just tell me you're going to be online tonight. I'm not going to talk to you. It was like schoolgirl work. Like we were like, okay, we've got an hour. Somebody who's setting the timer, you or I? And she's like, and okay. And it's so silly, but it's just nice to know someone's there. And I have learned a lot. I mean, I'm saying this, I'm like, oh my gosh, professors are going to watch this, but I've learned a lot. It's just that I wish I wish I could just sort of temper that. But that's just the way I've always been. Like I want if you give me, 5 gallons of something, I want to have all 5 gallons of it. Like, I just don't want to waste anything. And to Kamara's point, the skill now is knowing what you need for the road and knowing where you can come back and get it, be more efficient with it. It's one of those, it's a value that I've always wanted for my son. He's turning 21 next week. And one of when I've been very reflective about this week, I'm very emotional. And when he was a little guy, I remember one of my wise women said to me, you cannot, it's like, what is your strategic plan? We're such nerds. What is your strategic plan for him? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I want him to be everything. I want nothing to happen to him. Only good things to happen. I want him to everything. She's like, well, that's not going to happen. I remember Philadelphia airport, like 2002 or 2003. And she's like, well, that's not going to happen. You need to think about 2 or 3 things, competencies, aptitudes, values that are going to drive you. They're going to be your North Star. And for me at that time, it was like, I want him to be compassionate, I want him to be creative, and I want him to be confident. And what I meant by confident was like, just know where you need to go. You don't need to know it all. You just need to know who knows it all. So when you need it, you need to go over there. Like for Kamari, like you're a professional, your wealth of professional experience and skill like blows my mind. And so I know, like, so much other stuff out there that's like so interesting to me. And I'm so grateful. And Kelly, same thing. Like Kelly and her tech world that I have no idea and don't understand, but such deep appreciation because she's real badass in that space. Like she's really, really good at it. And Melissa, I agree with you. Like I read your post and it's like from a socio-emotional space, like you're my partner in crime. I need to learn more about what you're doing. And I have notes in my notes. This is like Melissa or like, Sam, because I know that you guys have the work experiences and the life experiences that match what I'm interested most in terms of my pop. So it's like we all have, so we're learning so much more about one another. I just wish there was more time for us to sort of dive deep as opposed to, I know like we come to this Sunday and we're like, okay, we want to sort of let our hair down, but we also can't be here like, because we could gab till like 10 o'clock at night, like, and we could. And maybe one of these days we might as well, we just should, like maybe after the semester's over, because we have a lot to put out for one another, and we could actually maybe short circuit some of our own learning, really like short circuit in a good way, like fuse and get to certain places quicker because we have each other as assets. But it's meant a whole world of difference for me to have the humans in this program, not just the knowledge and the books and the, and all the homework and all the papers.
Well, I think that was beautifully said, and I'm just going to wrap us up now. So if you watch this, I hope that you are encouraged too. I hope that you all have each found your own groups and your own people. And if you want to hang with us, let us know, message us, because we like to talk about these things. And what's that?
$1 to join. Bring your own wine.
Yes. But anyway, unless anybody else has anything else to say, I'm going to close us out. And again, I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas break, and we'll see you on the other side in the next class.
Thanks,
Bye.
Thank you.